All right, welcome to Researching Alabama Properties Before You Buy Them. I want to remind everybody that this is educational. It is not legal advice. It's not investment advice. I'm attorney Greg Stanley, but I'm not your attorney unless you have signed an engagement agreement and I've signed an engagement agreement and you've given me money. So unless you've done that, this is not legal advice for you. So today what I want to do is I want to talk about how to research properties. Typically, we talk about distressed properties. So the place that you find those properties would be Alabama Public Notice, or you can find them in the Atlas Facebook page. We post several of them every Thursday. You can find them on Parcel Fair, the Alabama Department of Revenue website. And from there, what we typically do is we go to the county assessor's portal. And we'll talk about how we do that. But typically what we do is we search by address, not by the person's name. And then we go to the county GIS map and we have a look at it. We make sure that the property really is where we think that it is based on what the county says. Alabama addresses are famous for being incorrect. Then we just do a basic internet search for the possible value and we have a look at the neighborhood. And then the next thing we do is we look at the county records online. And that's probably the reason why most of y'all are here, is to look at how to research county records online. And we're going to be using Montgomery for most of this. If you would like to see more of these sorts of videos, please like and subscribe, and you'll get a notice saying that another one of these videos is coming up. So I mentioned before that there's several places that you can find distressed assets to try to purchase. Here's the web addresses for all those places that I mentioned. And what we're going to do is we're going to focus on, we're going to start and we're going to use Alabama Public Notices. Before we go there, I wanted to give you this list as well. And you can run this tape back and you can see these and jot them down. The county land records for Jefferson County are at Landmark. And then there's the one for Montgomery County. You're going to need to have a subscription for that one. Madison County, and then all the Siscon counties, many counties in Alabama, you have to pay to be able to see their online land records. Those are all listed with Siscon. And here's the web address for Siscon online. Shelby County is another one that uses a system similar to Landmark. You can find them just by searching Shelby County, Alabama land records, and you'll be fine. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to move over to Alabama Public Notices. Give me 2 shakes while I get us moved over there. All right, Alabama Public Notices. You can see the web address up here. You can expand that on your screen and see it, but it's Alabama Public Notices with an S at the end.com. And that'll take you to this page. And what I typically do is I type in foreclosure, then I click on county and I selected Jefferson County in this case because that's what we're going to be using. And then you just click search. Now, it may ask you to do a CAPTCHA. No problem. You can just do the CAPTCHA. It's really quick. You can see that there are a lot of them. There's 10 per page, and this is just Alabama, and there's 90 pages. So I'm no mathematician, but I'm pretty sure that's a big number of foreclosures that are listed. Now, keep in mind, some of these foreclosures, and the date ranges from June through today, and some of these are in the past. So some of these foreclosures have already happened. I want to go ahead and look at one. Let's look at this one here. And here's the CAPTCHA. So if I can't convince it, I'm not a robot. Y'all feel free to just make fun of me. Oh, it worked. I fooled it. All right. So here's some things that I want you to do. What I would suggest you do is go ahead and either open a Word document that you can start dumping things into, just copying and throwing it in there, or get a pad and pen and start making notes. And you'll want to do this for every property that you're going to research. I would suggest you do it now for this one, just as practice. What we want to do first is we want to look up the name of the person. Okay, that's Dwight Whitaker. So we're going to make a note of Dwight Whitaker. Then we want to look and see when the auction is. The auction is July 22nd, 2025. The legal hours of sale, what that means is it has to be after 9 a.m. and before 4 p.m., but it can be any time. So you may need to contact the entity that listed the foreclosure, and you'll see that at the bottom of this ad, of this publication. The next thing we want to note is the legal description. And this one is Lot 8 in Block 6, according to the survey of Sloss Village, Sector B. And we also even have the map book and page that it's recorded in. But what we really care about is Lot 8, Block 6, Sloss Village, Sector B. Now, sometimes they'll put the address of the property right here in the ad. And if they do, we want to grab that address. One of the tricks that I've noticed that lawyers do when they list these things in foreclosure ads is if their client wants to get a bunch of bids, they'll put the address in here. If the client doesn't want a bunch of bids, for example, maybe they want the property, which that's not cool to try to do that, but if they want the property, sometimes the foreclosure listing, the publication, will be very, very small, and it'll only have just the basic legal information that's necessary, and you don't have to actually have the address. Now, this one here, I'm going to go ahead and copy it. It's 2682 Grandville Avenue, Bessemer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump over to the Citizens Access Portal. And you can see the address for the Citizens Access Portal right there. We're going to go to Real Property Search. But we're not going to look for owner, because this owner, Dwayne, he might have several different properties. We don't know how many properties he has. So we want to search by the property address or the parcel ID. Now, I want to show you something, though. You see how it's not popping up with anything? It doesn't show that there's a 2682 Grandville. Let's keep deleting stuff until we get something. Okay, so the address was really 2682 Grandville with no D in it. So just paste your address and start truncating back until something pops up. So this is where we're going to go, and remember some of the things we said that we're going to check. We're going to check the owner, Dwight Whitaker. Oh, this says heirs of. We're going to make a note of that. Make a note that this says heirs of Dwight Whitaker. We're going to make sure that it's in Bessemer, and now we're going to go and we're going to go ahead and look at the details. All you have to do is just click here. Now, keep in mind, everything that I'm showing you is free. You don't even have to log in to the Jefferson County Citizens Access Portal. If you were to log in up here, that would take you to your properties, and you can't search outside of your properties. Okay, so this says that the property is appraised by the county at about 119. Let's make a note of that. And now, in the past, these appraisals were notoriously low, absolutely notoriously low. However, Alabama changed the law a few years ago, and they said, you have to, they told the assessors that they must reassess the properties periodically. And I'm pretty sure that now we're on a 2-year cycle. So all properties in the state have to be reassessed at least every 2 years. Now, don't get me wrong. Jefferson County doesn't send someone out there to do the assessment. What Jefferson County does is essentially they ask ChatGPT, hey, what's this thing worth today? All right, so what we wanted to do now is we wanted to go ahead and check the legal description. Let's see, it's Lot 8, Block 6, Sloss Village, Section B. So this is the correct property. Now, if you want to see that more clearly, it's in the meets and bounds. Lot 8, Block 6, Sloss Village, Sector B. So that's right where we want to be. Let's look at this heirs of thing now. Let's pop down here. Remember, what we're trying to do is we're trying to just suss out what's going on with this property. Is this something that I want to bid on? How many liens and encumbrances are there against this piece of property? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and scroll down to the property. It says, hey, there's a building there. That's great. Typical construction, carpets and average plumbing, things like that. This says that the last deed was in 1986. That's pretty interesting. Now, Jefferson County doesn't have this fixed yet, so you can't actually click on the instrument number and have it take you to the instrument. But it will take you to Landmark. So that's a quick thing for you. If you have Parcel Fair, all these links are already in Parcel Fair. Shout out to Tim Cheek. Great job, young man. So let's look again. Whitaker, Dwight, heirs of. Well, they did that. They changed it from Dwight Whitaker in 2024. What that sounds like to me is that sometime in 2024, maybe 2023, Mr. Whitaker passed away. And what his heirs did was they went into Jefferson County and they are supposed to bring in an official document from the county, specifically a county health department certificate of death. And if they bring that in, they're allowed to change it to the heirs of Dwight Whitaker. And they'll only be able to put that into the name of an executor if they bring in the letters testamentary that they've already got by opening the estate for Mr. Whitaker. So let's keep looking at other things. We want to look at some instruments here. This says 1995 there's an instrument number. Once again, we're not going to click on that right now. I did want to look and see who's been paying the taxes on this property. So if you go all the way to the top and then you scroll down past valuation, you can see view historical tax payments right there. Well, look at that. Starting in 2024, CoreLogic paid the taxes on this property. Well, that's a good thing. What that means is that that the owner was clever enough to have his taxes escrowed. However, it appears as though the owner didn't have to pay taxes ever since 2011. What I would suspect is that in 2011, he went and got an exemption, probably the over 65 exemption. Now let's run back though and have a look again, because there is an exempt code right here. Why doesn't it say it? Well, it doesn't say it because it's been moved off of the exempt code. Now, if we had gone and looked in this 5 years ago, it should have had the exempt code saying that they're over 65 or disabled, and for some reason or other, they don't have to pay either their city, state, local, or any of the taxes. And you should look into that yourself if you think that you're 100% disabled, Social Security disabled, not VA disabled, or you're 65. So you should go ahead and check those things out. All right. So what we've learned is that we believe that the man passed away. We believe that his heirs have assessed it. So now it's time for us to move to the next step. And let's go ahead and look at the GIS. So before we jump into landmark, let's go ahead and look on the map, because the map can tell us a lot of things. So I want to go to, this is the Jefferson County parcel lookup, and you can see the addresses right there. Make sure whenever you search for these things that you put in the state, because frankly, there are a lot of Jefferson counties in the United States. So it looks like Mr. Whitaker is the assessed guy. So we're going to choose this property here, and it's going to show us where the property is. Now, one of the things that I do is I keep the little snipping tool right there on my right there in my tray. And so as I'm going along, I can just copy this, make sure I catch the street on it, maybe catch 2 streets on it, and then I copy that. Now I'm going to save that to my documents, that notes document, that Word document that I suggested that you start before. I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and just drop that in there. Now, one of the things that I like to do while I'm on this screen is I like to make notes to myself. So if I'm on 26 Terrace South, headed east, and I dead end, I should be bumping into that house. So I know that there'll be that house, one more house, and then the second house should be the house that I'm looking for. So I don't go and I don't look for 2682 on the mailbox. I look based on what the GIS map says. The next thing you should do is when you're on 28 Court South and you run east and you bump into Granville, one big long house, you should be able to figure out that there's an empty lot, and then go to this house again. Now keep in mind, when you go to that house, what you're liable to see is they didn't actually put their own address. They may have made up an address to put on there. And they do this because, well, it's a distressed property. They didn't pay their taxes. They're going into foreclosure or whatever, and they don't want you to be able to find them. So oftentimes, people will either take down their address or they will literally put up a different address. The most clever that I've seen is a house on a corner put up a new mailbox, and they put it on the other street and put a different address on the other street. Now, the post office won't deliver to that address, but it sure was a good decoy. So once again, Here's where we're looking at. Here's that empty lot, and here's the house that we've been looking at. It looks like it has a storage building out back. Looks pretty interesting. So I want to go ahead and see where we are in the world. Where in the world are we? Okay, I see where we are. So if you look, the city center is over here, and the Bartlett is over here. So we know where we are. It looks like a pretty reasonable area of Bessemer. All right, so now let's go back to Landmark. Now, when you go to Landmark, you're going to want to log in, okay? It's free. Just make yourself a free login and log in. That gives you access to a little bit more stuff, okay? I often, rather than try to type things in, I will often just copy and paste it. It saves me from making typos and fat fingering things and like that. So I'm going to take out the comma. So it says Whitaker White, and we're going to see what it says. Now, I'm not going to do this step right now today, but I want you to consider, if I were doing this and I was getting very serious, I would truncate the name. I would delete it all the way back to D, because some people might spell Dwight as D-White, D-E-W, or they might spell it D-W. They may spell it different ways. And every time it's spelled a different way, we need to capture that. We need to make sure that we have all of the instruments that affect this guy. Now, I'm not going to do that today for the sake of ease. So we're going to look for everything that Dwight Whitaker has. Now, what I like to do is I like to flip it upside down so that the most recent thing is on top. And then I kind of like to go backwards. It helps me. Now, if your brain goes the other way, just run down here. If you run down to the bottom, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go up until you find a deed. Now, I'm betting you that that's going to be the deed to this property, because I don't see any other deeds. But let's start at the top, because that's the way I like to do it. I'm just going to click that. That opens it up for me, and it's a scrivener's affidavit. That's not going to affect the title, but I do want to see what it says. Okay, it looks like they just put the wrong subdivision name on a mortgage, and then they fixed it. It also looks like they fixed this sometime in 2024 based on when it was recorded. It was recorded in July of 2024. That tells me that it probably happened about the time that the fellow passed away, and they wanted to get the title correct so that they could sell it, or so that it could be foreclosed on, for example. Now, I want to mention this. Don't hit the backspace right here. Don't go back a page. Every time you're going to want to go back to search results, because if you take it back a page, it actually takes you and you have to start your search again. Okay. So here we've got the mid-first assignment of mortgage. Okay, well, so let's see. This was assigned from GMAC. Now, if you guys weren't watching me, I would print these out. Well, I mean, I would save them to a folder, and then I'd make a note of the date and the grantee and the grantor. So the grantor was GMAC, granted it to mid-first. Okay, well, who's GMAC? Okay, here's where GMAC got it. So GMAC got it here, and they got it with this mortgage electronics, the MERS system, and that was back in 2007. Okay, well, this is a mortgage release. Why do you suppose there was a mortgage release? Well, I suspect that in 2007, our friend Dwight refinanced the property. So that's what we're going to look for. There's a mortgage release, and then here's a mortgage. And if we open this up, it's going to be a mortgage. So we'll go ahead and do that. So you see, it's a mortgage, even though it says mortgage or assessment of or assignment of mortgage. It was really the mortgage. So we've looked at the affidavit. We know that it was assigned here. Here's the origination of the mortgage. Well, look, it's 2007. That's the same mortgage that we saw in the original Alabama notice. So that's the mortgage that they're foreclosing on. In January of 2007. So this is the very mortgage that they're foreclosing on. So we're on track here. Everything's lining up just as we would want it to. Now, they can be a lot more complicated than this. Fortunately for us, this is a pretty easy one. Now, here's that mortgage release. Here's a lien. Here's a satisfaction of a hospital lien, and then here's the hospital lien. Here's an assignment of a mortgage. Here's an assignment, and here's that original mortgage. So here's the original mortgage with the deed. So this is the original mortgage that was released here. Now, again, if you weren't all waiting on me to get through this, I would open this up, I'd save it to the folder, I would check the instrument numbers against the mortgage release, make sure that they're the same thing and that the dates all match. So let's just make sure that this is right. We'll open the deed, and we can save this deed to our folder that has all the documents. And it is Lot 8, Block 6, Sloss Village, Sector B. So this is it. And it looks like he did buy it in 95, but then he financed it in 2007. I like a 2007 mortgage. Well, actually, let's go back and look at that again. Let's see how much was this mortgage for. Now, we think that the property is worth a little over $100,000 today. And it looks like the mortgage was for, so they didn't put it in the deed, so we're going to look in the mortgage. This was the mortgage right here. And this mortgage was for $49,000. So $50,000, let's jot that down for later reference. $50,000. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at gregory@stanley-law.com. So $50,000-ish. All right, so now let's go back and we're going to look at some of these liens. Looks like there was a lien from Sears and Roebuck. So let's have a look and see how much this was. Okay, this was back in, it looks to me like this was back in 2003. So this was actually going to be before the mortgage was made. So this is certainly going to be affecting the mortgage. How much was it? It was $2,100. And it was in 2003. So we need to triple that, say that it's going to be about $6,000 to pay that off. Now let's go back and let's look at the next one. Sears and Roebuck. Now, where's the next one? The next lien is here, Samson Financial. That name sounds familiar to me. Samson Financial. Okay, here, and this is the year here is 2005, and this says that it's about, let's say, $5,000. Samson, though, what does Samson do? Samson Financial LLC. Let's quick look those guys up. So we're going to go to the business entity records right here at this address online, Alabama. It's free. And we're going to type in Samson and see what comes up. Too many things came up. So we're going to go back and we're going to look again. And Samson Financial LLC. Okay. I'm going to go back. Samson Financial. Well, look at that. There they are. Samson Financial LLC. They still exist. That's helpful because that means that we can probably get a hold of them. If we can't get a hold of them, we can probably get them served. So let's see what their business is. They buy third-party financial obligations. What I would be willing to bet is that Samson doesn't actually have a new lien on this property. I bet you that what Samson has, they bought this from Sears, and that so they bought this Sears lien, and now they're recording it just to make sure, because that's one of the things about liens. The whole purpose of recording it is to give the world notice that it's there. So if we wanted to pay it off, they need to have recorded it so that we can go and find them and pay it off. So this was in 2006 that they recorded it at about 5,000. 2006. So it's going to be a little bit more than $6,000. It's probably going to be about $10,000. So what we're going to say is worst case basis. Worst case basis. That's the base case. Anytime I look at any property, the base case is you're going to have to replace the carpeting. You're going to have to paint. You're going to have to paint every surface. You're going to have to fix the air conditioner. If the power's on the pole, you're going to have the electricity re-inspected. That's the base case. Always just presume you're going to have to do all those things and factor that in. So right now, what we have is the property, the lien on the property was about $50,000. Well, that was 2007. So let's say that that lien now is down to $25,000. And then there's a $6,000 lien, and then there's a $10,000 lien. Looks like we've got about $41,000 that we're expecting to see. Now, we would want to go ahead and continue on. There's some other things that we would want to look at. We would want to go ahead and contact the sewer department and see if there's a lien against the property from the sewer department. Jefferson County is notorious for not releasing sewer liens. However, when you get to that point, we're going to bring in Attorney Jennifer Scruggs, because Attorney Jennifer Scruggs has worked some magic before as far as getting some liens released. So I can't say that she's going to be able to get a Jefferson County lien release, but when she does the closing and she does title curative so that these closings can go through, that's one of the things that she has been able to do. So good on her. All right. So we've looked at all of the things. The only thing we haven't looked at yet. So we've looked at the title. We've looked at the liens. We have a rough number what we think that the financial company is going to come in saying, hey, if you want to bid on this, you're going to have to start at $41,000. Okay, so the start is $41,000. That's just our estimate. Maybe there's going to be $4,000 worth of other collection fees and things like that. So we'll say $45,000. That's going to be the beginning bid, or what some people call the credit bid. So that's probably going to be where this bid starts, somewhere around $45,000. But that doesn't tell us what we want, what we think it's worth, what we would be willing to pay for it. So the last thing that I want to do is I want to go ahead and search. I just want to search for the property. I just want to go online and search for the property. I'm going to remember to fix this spelling error. Do you suppose they did that on purpose? I don't know. Granville Avenue. All right, interesting. It looks like they smudged out. You can't see this yet. You'll see it in a second. Looks like they've smudged it out a little bit. Now, in the past, we all mocked Zillow because their prices were so overinflated. I'm happy to tell you that Zillow has gotten a handle on that, and they are, I don't own stock in Zillow, but their prices really do somewhat reflect the market values, not what people were asking for their properties, and not including some fantastic, crazy inflation rate. So here they're saying 111,000. As I recall, the county said 119. So I'm going to go with the lower number here, 111,000. We're just going to round it. 111,000. That's a good number. 111,000. Drop off that little 600 bit. So let's go ahead and just for funsies, let's have a look at the street. Well, I don't know if this guy is one of these sovereign citizen types, or if he was embarrassed that he didn't paint his house. So whatever, he smudged it out. Let's look at the street. The grass is cut. The houses look maintained. We already looked at this on the GIS map, and we know that location-wise, it's close to civilization. It's close to DeBartolome Park. It's close to the downtown. So I'm not saying you could walk to dinner, but it looks okay. A lot of cars. That's a sign of affluence. If a family owns a lot of cars, that means that they're a very, very wealthy family. I think that's what that means. All right, so now we've done that. We have a clue. So let's run back and let's just see what else maybe Zillow says about it. So Zillow says that it's 1,653 square feet. That checks. That's what we thought it was before, and it's a relatively small lot. And that's what the picture looked like as well. Rent estimate. I'm going to jot that one down. And I use that rent estimate whenever I rent property. I either use what Facebook tells me, what Facebook Marketplace tells me is the proper rental value, or I use the Zillow rental. And that's what I get, my friends. That's the rent that I get, is what it says on Facebook or Zillow. You don't need to go below that. It's got some comps here. That's a beautiful thing. Well, gotta look at that one. Oh, it's sold already. I'll bet you that one was a flip. Plus 125% in the last 10 years. That checks. I believe that. In America and in Alabama, everything has doubled in price in about the last 7.2 years. So good, good, good. All right. So single family, residential, everything looks really good. Looks really good. So if we wanted to bid on this, what are we going to do? We want to bid on this. What are we going to use for our number? How high do we want to go? Now, property's probably vacant. I'm going to assume that it's vacant because we believe that the fellow who owned it passed away. Now, we can also skip trace him, and you can skip trace him with fastpeoplesearch.com. No, I don't own stock in them. Fastpeoplesearch.com. That'll give you a lot of the vital statistics, and you can confirm that it's him just by checking the address and see if it says that, you know, the one that you find actually lived at that address. All right, so from there, we want to come up with the price that we are going to be comfortable using when we go to bid. We're going to go to the house. We're going to walk around. We're going to probably take some pictures. Some people don't like this, but I do it every time. I go and I talk to the neighbors. Hey, what happened to this house over here? I'm thinking about buying it, and see how they treat you. If they're hateful and they don't want you in the neighborhood, well, that's going to kind of lower the price from, you know, what you were thinking about maybe bidding. So you're going to discount for that. And then you're going to say, all right, well, I think that it was worth 111. I think that I'm going to have to pay, I'm going to say $16,000 to pay off those liens. Remember, base case, worst case. Base case is worst case, okay? So that's what we're going to go with, is the worst possible case. So we're going to say we're going to have to pay about $16,000 in liens. Gosh, same guy lived in the house since 2007. He maintained it, but did he upgrade the cabinets? Did he upgrade the carpets in the, you know, the bathroom and the kitchen? Probably not. So I don't know what you pay to completely renovate a place like that, but on a house like this, based on the size of this house, I'm going to say about $40,000. So here's what you do now. The value that you think this house has, $111,000. Then you're going to subtract the liens that you think you're going to have to pay off. Then you subtract what you're going to have to pay to renovate it. So that means that we've got about $56,000 of costs after we buy it. Now we're going to subtract that from the 111, and that's going to give you a rough value of what you can plan to bid on this property. Now, I hear you already. A bunch of you are out there saying, no. When I'm through renovating this thing, it's going to be worth 150. Okay, great. If that's what you think, change that top number to 150. And that's going to lower the number at the bottom about what you can pay for it. If you think, oh, well, you know what? I do most of the work myself, and I'm not going to count the labor. I've got an in on flooring, so I can get flooring very cheap. I know that it only costs me $5,000 to actually completely renovate a kitchen because I've done it before. All right, you factor all those things in, and you come up with your number. Now, the number I came up with was $50,000 was all I could pay. About $50,000. That'd be the highest I would be willing to bid. Now, that means that my break even would be about $50,000. Do I want to buy this property so that I can break even? Now you fit in your margin, how much money you expect to make. Or if you intend to rent it, discount that in, factor that in for how much more you'd be willing to pay. A good rule of thumb is that this house is going to be worth $111,000. Therefore, you should be collecting about $1,200 in rent, somewhere around there. Looks like that house would support $1,200 in rent. So this is some of the due diligence that you're going to want to do. This has not been complete, okay? The due diligence that we have talked about today is not everything that you're going to need to do. I think that if you do this enough, you don't need to pay someone to do your title search for you. You'll be able to do that yourself. However, what I would suggest you do is that you pay someone to do a title search for you. The folks at my office Stanley and Associates LLC. The folks there, they'll do a simple title search for you. It's going to cost about $125, somewhere around there. Now, keep in mind, some counties like Sinclair County is not online, so now you're going to have to roughly triple that. So look to pay over $300 for just a title report from a property in Sinclair County. But what I would suggest you do is you do your own title search, and then you buy a title search from somebody, and then you see if you got it right. Now, keep in mind, if you go to Titles R Us online and you pay $89, you're going to get what you pay for. And they're not going to be able to do the ones that you have to go in person. They're only going to do the stuff that's online. They're not going to be looking at the sewer lien because that's not a recorded lien. So what we talked about is where to find distressed assets. If you forgot that or you missed that, go back to the first, I think it's the first slide, and you'll see that we talked about the Alabama Department of Revenue, where you can apply for tax liens, and you can buy tax liens from different places, different websites that I listed. Also, you can go to the foreclosure, the Alabama Foreclosure on Facebook, and we list foreclosures, not every foreclosure, obviously. The ones that we look at and look like they might be of interest to, especially out-of-staters. There's about 6,000 people that have already subscribed to that, and vast majority of them are out of state. And so we don't put everything on there. So if you thought this was valuable, thought this was interesting, please like and subscribe. And please remember that while I am an attorney, no representation is made that any legal services to be performed is greater than the legal services of any other Alabama attorneys. And I say that in all sincerity. I want you to know I believe that in all truth. All right, thank you so much. And please like and subscribe. This has been attorney Greg Stanley at Stanley & Associates in Alabama.